Claire Matthews did not mean to stop at the hotel bar. She had told herself she would go straight home, heat leftovers, answer a few emails, and sleep. But the elevator was slow, the rain was loud, and the quiet waiting for her at home felt heavier than usual. So she stepped out, followed the warm light, and sat on a high stool with her purse still on her shoulder. The bar smelled of citrus and clean wood. Jazz played softly, the kind meant to be ignored. A few business travelers sat alone, scrolling on their phones. Claire stared at the bottles behind the counter, trying to remember who she used to be. Before life became a list of responsibilities. "What can I get you?" the bartender asked. She looked up. He had calm eyes and an easy posture, like someone who didn't rush even when the world did. "Gin and tonic," she said. "Extra lime, coming right up." She watched his hands as he worked. There was nothing special about the moment, and yet it felt oddly steady, like a pause she hadn't known she needed. He placed the glass in front of her and nodded. "Long day?" he asked. "Long year," she replied before she could stop herself. He smiled, not pushing. "Fair enough." Claire took a sip. The drink was exactly right. She'd stayed longer than planned. Finished. The glass left a tip and went home. That should have been the end of it. A week later, she was back. She told herself it was because the meeting ran late, or because traffic was bad, or because the bar was on the way. But when she sat down, the bartender looked up and said, "Gin and tonic." "Extra lime?" She blinked. "You remember?" He shrugged lightly. "A try." That simple sentence stayed with her longer than it should have. Remembering felt rare these days. Home, Mark forgot things all the time, small things, like how she took her coffee or that she hated loud restaurants. He wasn't cruel. He was just distant, pulled into his own stress, his own silence. "My name's Evan," the bartender said as he poured. "Claire, nice to see you again." Claire. The words were casual, but they landed softly. Nice to see you again, not nice to serve you, not welcome back. Nice to see you. She went home that night thinking about nothing and everything at once. Over the next month, the visits became a pattern. Not every night, just enough to feel accidental. Evan never flirted. He never asked questions that crossed a line. He listened when she spoke, remembered when she returned, and somehow always noticed when she looked tired. "You look like you're carrying too much today," he said one evening, as he slid her drink across. She laughed quietly. "Is it that?" "Obvious, only if you're paying attention." That word again, tension. Claire found herself talking more than she meant to. About work. About how she used to love painting but hadn't touched a brush in years. About how she felt busy but empty at the same time. Evan listened without interrupting, wiping glasses, refilling ice, staying present without making her feel exposed. At home, Mark asked how her day was and barely waited for the answer. They ate dinner in front of the television. Their conversations were polite, careful, thin. They did not fight. They also did not touch. One night, after a particularly quiet dinner, Claire lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She wondered when loneliness had moved in without asking. The next evening, rain poured hard against the hotel windows. The bar was nearly empty. Evan leaned against the counter, folding a towel. "Rough night?" he asked. She nodded. "I didn't realize how loud silence could be." He paused, then said, "You don't have to explain." Something about that broke through her defenses. She felt seen without being questioned, understood without being examined. She stayed until closing, talking about small things, safe things. When Evan finally said he was done for the night, there was a moment where neither of them moved. "Well," he said, "get home safe. You too." She walked out into the rain feeling like she had left something unfinished behind her. After that, the tension shifted. Not in a dramatic way, just a subtle pull, a longer look. A shared smile held a second too long. Claire noticed herself choosing outfits she felt good in, not for attention, but for confidence. She noticed how Evan's voice softened when he said her name. She also noticed the guilt creeping in late at night, whispering that she was standing too close to something dangerous. One evening, Mark mentioned a work trip coming up. He spoke while scrolling on his phone. "I'll be gone 3 days." He said, "Okay," Claire replied. Neither of them said more. That night, Claire sat at the bar again. Evan handed her the drink without asking. "You're quiet," he said. "So are you." He smiled. "Guess we're even." There was a pause, thick with words they were not saying. "I should probably stop coming here," Claire said suddenly. Evan looked at her, serious now. "If that's what you need." "I don't know what I need," she admitted. He nodded. "Then don't decide tonight." His restraint surprised her. It made him feel safer, and that scared her more than anything else. When Mark left for his trip, the house felt hollow. Claire wandered from room to room, touching objects like proof of a life half lived. On the second night, she found herself back at the bar. Evan noticed her the moment she walked in. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey." They talked longer than usual, about childhood memories, about mistakes, about how life rarely turned out the way people planned. The bar emptied, the lights dimmed. "I don't want to be a bad person," Claire said quietly. Evan met her eyes. "Feeling something doesn't make you bad. What you do with it matters." She nodded, holding back tears. That was the moment she understood the truth. She was already standing at the edge. Nothing had happened, but something had changed. When Evan locked the door that night, they stood facing each other, close enough to feel the air shift between them. He did not touch her. "Go home," he said gently, "before this becomes something we can't undo." She left, heart pounding, knowing that restraint had made the pull stronger, not weaker. Claire did not sleep that night. She thought about all the moments that led her here. The years of being needed but not noticed. The slow fade of passion into routine. The danger of being remembered by someone who had no obligation to care. Morning, she knew one thing clearly. This was no longer just a drink at a bar. It was a choice waiting to be made. Claire tried to stay away after that night. She told herself distance would cool everything down. She deleted the hotel bar from her usual route home and stayed busy on purpose. Work, chores, errands, anything to avoid thinking. But avoiding something did not erase it. The silence at home only grew louder. Mark returned from his trip tired and distracted. He kissed her cheek, dropped his bag, and went straight to the shower. They talked about his meetings, her deadlines, the rising cost of groceries. They did not talk about feelings. They did not talk about the space between them. Claire watched him from across the room and felt like she was looking at someone she once knew well but no longer reached. Days passed. Claire felt restless. She slept lightly and woke with a tight chest. Small things irritated her. She caught herself checking the time in the evenings, then shaking her head as if disappointed in herself. One Friday night after another. Quiet dinner. Mark fell asleep on the couch. The television glowed softly. Claire stood there for a long moment, then picked up her coat. She told herself it was just one drink. The hotel bar looked the same, but Evan was not behind the counter. Her heart sank in a way she had not expected. She ordered from another bartender and sat in silence, feeling foolish. Halfway through her drink, she heard his voice. "Claire," she turned. Evan stood near the back, jacket on, keys in hand. "I wasn't working tonight," he said. "Just stopping by." She smiled, relief rushing through her before she could stop it. Lucky timing. He sat across from her, not behind the bar. That small change made everything feel different, more personal, more real. "How have you been?" he asked. Hesitated, then said, trying to be careful. He nodded and, still confused. They talked fast that night, as if time were limited, about the weight of long relationships, about how love could turn quiet without anyone noticing, about fear, about responsibility. Evan listened closely, his eyes steady. "I don't want to be your escape," he said carefully. "If I don't want to be a mistake you regret." "You're not a mistake," Claire said. Then she stopped herself. "I mean, this situation is complicated." He smiled sadly. Complicated usually means painful. When she got home, Mark was awake. He looked at the clock. You're late. I needed air, she said. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. Okay, but something had changed. He felt it too. Over the next weeks, Mark became more observant. He asked more questions. He noticed when Claire smiled at her phone, even though there was nothing. On it, he noticed when she seemed far away. One night he asked, "Are you happy?" The question caught her off guard. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "I don't know," she said honestly. Mark looked hurt, but not surprised. "That's not a good answer." "No," she agreed. "It's not." The distance between them turned heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Claire knew she could not keep standing in the middle forever. She saw Evan less often, but when she did, the connection felt deeper, quieter, more dangerous. They no longer pretended it was nothing. They still did not touch, but their words carried weight. One night, Evan said, "If you stay because it's easier, you'll resent everyone. If you leave without honesty, you'll resent yourself." She nodded. She knew he was right. The breaking point came on a Sunday morning. Mark tried to hold her, and she froze. He pulled back, pain clear on his face. "That's it," he said softly. "Something's wrong, and I need the truth." Claire sat down. Her hands shook. She told him about the loneliness first, about feeling unseen, about drifting apart. Then, slowly, she told him about Evan. Not as an affair, but as a mirror that showed her what was missing. Mark listened in. Silence. When she finished, he looked older. "Did you love him?" He asked. "I don't know," she said. "But I know I wasn't living honestly." They cried. They argued. They tried to understand what had already slipped through their fingers. In the end, love was not enough to close the gap that had grown for years. The separation was quiet and painful. Friends were shocked. Family asked questions. Claire moved into a small apartment with bare walls and too much quiet. She felt grief, guilt, and relief all at once. She did not see Evan for a long time. Months passed. Claire rebuilt slowly. She painted again. She learned how to sit with herself. Some nights were harder than others. She missed Mark in familiar ways. She missed Evan in uncertain ones. One evening, after a long day, she found herself near the hotel without planning to be. She stood outside for a full minute before going, and Evan was there. They froze when they saw each other, then smiled like people relieved to breathe again. "You okay?" He asked. "Getting there," she said. They talked like old friends, careful and honest. No secrets now. No hiding. "I didn't want to reach out while everything was raw," Evan said. "I needed to know you were choosing your life, not me." She nodded. "I was afraid you'd think I left for you." "I didn't want that weight on us," he said. They walked outside together. The night air was cool. The city lights reflected in the windows. "I'm not asking for promises," Evan said. "Just truth." Claire met his eyes. "It can give you that." They stood close, not rushing. Evan finally reached for her hand. She did not pull away. It felt calm, earned, real. Later, Claire would think about how everything began with something so small. A remembered drink. A quiet kindness. A moment of being seen. It was never just about infidelity. It was about waking up, about choosing. Honesty even when it costs something. About learning that love, when ignored, does not disappear. It waits. And sometimes it waits behind a bar, holding a glass with extra lime, ready to remind you who you are.